Hi everyone, this is Ruchi Kulkarni. Today we are going to read and understand a chapter from class 10th book Footprints Without Feet. The name of this chapter is A Question of Trust, which is written by Victor Canning. This story is about a thief who gets a taste of his own medicine. Horace Danby can be termed as a thief with a difference. He robbed the wealthy just once a year, only to buy himself rare books to read. He otherwise had a successful business of locks and safe. But one incident of robbery changed his life. It made him doubt whether there was any honor left among thieves. Let's read and understand the story written by Victor Canning, which unfolds a twist at the end, followed by the significance of the title, the moral, summary, and question answers in today's session. And before we begin, let's know something about Victor Canning. Victor Canning was born on 16 June 1911 in Plymouth. He was a prolific British writer of novels and thrillers who flourished in the 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s. He was personally reserved, writing no memoir and giving few newspaper interviews. At the age of 19, he had started selling short stories to boys' magazines. In 1934, his first novel, Mr. Finchley Discovers His England, became a runaway bestseller. He also wrote a number of his travel articles for the Daily Mail, which were collected as a book under the title Every Man's England in 1936. His other notable works are Fly Away Paul, Two Men Fought, Mercy Lane, Fountain Inn, and many more. He died on 21st February 1986. It is said that you must set a thief to catch a thief, but it is also said that there is honor among thieves. Which saying does this story illustrate? Let's read the story to find an answer to this question. Everyone thought that Horace Danby was a good, honest citizen. He was about 50 years old and unmarried, and he lived with a housekeeper who worried over his health. In fact, he was usually very well and happy except for attacks of hay fever in summer. Hay fever is a disorder affecting the nose and throat caused by allergy to pollen or dust. He made locks and was successful enough at his business to have two helpers. Yes, Horace Danby was good and respectable, but not completely honest. 15 years ago, Horace had served his first and only sentence in a prison library. He loved rare, expensive books, so he robbed a safe every year. A safe is a strong, fireproof cabinet with a complex lock which is used for storage of valuables. Each year he planned carefully just what he would do, stole enough to last for 12 months, and secretly bought the books he loved through an agent. Now, walking in the bright July sunshine, he felt sure that this year's robbery was going to be as successful as all the others. For 2 weeks, he had been studying the house at Shotover Grange, looking at its rooms, its electric wirings, its paths, and its garden. Shotover is a hill and forest in Oxfordshire, England, and Grange is a large house or a farmhouse with buildings attached with it. This afternoon, the two servants who remained in the Grange while the family was in London had gone to the movies. Horace saw them go, and he felt happy in spite of a little tickle of hay fever in his nose. He came out from behind the garden wall, his tools carefully packed in a bag on his back. This story is about a man named Horace Danby. He was a good person, he was a respectable person. He was about 50 years old, unmarried, and he had a business of making locks. His business was doing so well that he had two helpers. His housekeeper used to be very worried about his health because every summer he would get this hay fever attack. Now, hay fever is a kind of irritation in nose and throat because of the allergy to dust and pollen. And in summer, it aggravates, it is more. 15 years back, Horace served his first and the only sentence in a prison library. So, besides his business of making locks, he was also a thief. He used to rob a safe every year. A safe is a cabinet where all the wealth and jewels are kept by rich people. And this kind of a cabinet has a very complex lock. But Horace was very competent and intelligent to unlock such safes and take out the money, that is, rob the money. So every year he would plan such a robbery which would suffice him or which will give him sufficient amount of money for the rest of 12 months for that entire year. And through that money he used to secretly buy books which he loved to read. So now this year it was July month and he was planning to rob a large farmhouse which was situated on Shotover. Shotover was a hill and forest in Oxfordshire. The family which lived in that grange had gone to London, and there were two servants who were left behind who were taking care of the house, and that day those two servants went to watch a movie. Horace had been observing this entire house for the past 2 weeks. He had observed its rooms, its electric wirings, its paths, and garden so that the robbery can be done in the most safest manner. So he had really planned to rob this house for a long time, and this was the day when he could do it. So he came out of the garden wall with his tools carefully packed in a bag on his back, and he went inside the house to rob it. There were about 15,000 pounds worth of jewels in the Grange safe. If he sold them one by one, he expected to get at least 5,000, enough to make him happy for another year. There were 3 very interesting books coming up for sale in the autumn. Now he would get the money he wanted to buy them. He had seen the housekeeper hang the key to the kitchen door on the hook outside. He put on a pair of gloves, took the key, and opened the door. He was always careful not to leave any fingerprints. A small dog was lying in the kitchen. It stirred, made a noise, and moved its tail in a friendly way. Stirred means moved. "All right, Sherry," Horace said as he passed. All you had to do to keep dogs quiet was to call them by their right names and show them love. The safe was in the drawing room behind the rather poor painting. Horace wondered for a moment whether he should collect pictures instead of books, but they took up too much room. In a small house, books were better. There was a great bowl of flowers on the table, and Horace felt his nose tickle. He gave a little sneeze and then put down his bag. He carefully arranged his tools. He had 4 hours before the servants returned. Horace could make out that there were about 15,000 pounds worth of jewels in that Grange safe. So if he sold them one by one, he expected to get a handsome money which would suffice him or be sufficient for him for another year. And in that autumn season, there was a sale which was coming up, and he planned to buy some interesting books for himself. So by robbing this house, he would also get money to buy those books which he wanted. Now Horace went to the kitchen door because he knew that the key of the house was on a hook outside the kitchen door. So he went there, he put on gloves, he took the key, and he opened the door. He always put on his gloves because he never wanted to leave any kind of fingerprints there. There was a small dog. He befriended that dog, whose name was Sherry, by showing him some love and calling him by his name. So the dog did not trouble him at all. Then he went to the drawing room. The safe was behind a big painting, and then there was a bowl of flowers on the table. The flowers were the things that used to cause a lot of allergy to Horace because they had pollens and he was allergic to that pollen. So, since the flowers were kept there, he had a bit of sneezing, but then he put his bag down and he started to arrange his tools. He had 4 hours before the servants would arrive. The safe was not going to be hard to open. After all, he had lived with locks and safes all his life. The burglar alarm was poorly built. He went into the hall to cut its wires. He came back and sneezed loudly as the smell of the flowers came to him again. How foolish people are when they own valuable things, Horace thought. A magazine article had described this house, giving a plan of all the rooms and a picture of this room. The writer had even mentioned that the painting hid a safe. But Horace found that the flowers were hindering him in his work. Hindering means interfering. He buried his face in his handkerchief. Then he heard a voice say from the doorway, "What is it? A cold or hay fever?" Before he could think, Horace said, "Hay fever," and found himself sneezing again. The voice went on, "You can cure it with a special treatment, if you find out just what plant gives you the disease. I think you should better see a doctor. If you're serious about your work, I heard you from the top of the house just now." Horace knew everything about locks and safes because he had a business of his own. And in this house, the burglar alarm was not very strong. He cut all the wires of that alarm. When he came back, he sneezed again. The reason behind his sneezing was that there was a bowl of flowers in that room, which was causing him a lot of allergy. Sometime back in a magazine article, he had seen this very house which was described. That article had even given a plan of all the rooms and pictures of this room, and the writer had even mentioned that there was a safe behind an old painting. So Horace knew where the safe was, but the only thing which was interfering in his work was that flowers. While he was sneezing, there was a voice from the doorway. He did not know who was talking, but that person asked him whether it was a cold or a hay fever, and Horace told that person that it was a hay fever. The person who was speaking to Horace told him that there is a special treatment or cure for this allergy only if that person knows which plant causes that disease. And now Horace realized that there was someone else also in that house at that point of time. It was a quiet, kindly voice, but one with firmness in it. A woman was standing in the doorway, and Sherry was rubbing against her. She was young, quite pretty, and was dressed in red. She walked to the fireplace and straightened the ornaments there. "Down, Sherry," she said. "Anyone would think I had been away for a month." She smiled at Horace and went on. "However, I came back just in time, though I didn't expect to meet a burglar." Burglar means a thief. Horace had some hope because she seemed to be amused at meeting him. He might avoid trouble if he treated her the right way. He replied, "I didn't expect to meet one of the family." She nodded. "I see. What an inconvenience it is for you to meet me. What are you going to do?" Horace said, "My first thought was to run." "Of course you could do that, but I would telephone the police and tell them all about you. They would get you at once." The voice which Horace heard was a very quiet and a kind voice, but it was firm. It was the voice of a woman. There was a woman also in that house who was standing in doorway, and the dog named Sherry was quite friendly with her. This woman was very young. She was pretty. She was dressed in red. She told Horace that she had not expected to meet a burglar because everyone must have thought that she would be away for a month. And Horace also never expected that he would see anyone of that family. But Horace was acting very smart. He felt that if he treated this lady well in a right way, then she would not call the police and get him arrested. Horace said, "I would, of course, cut the telephone wires first and then..." He hesitated, a smile on his face. I would make sure that you could do nothing for some time. A few hours would be enough. She looked at him seriously. You'd hurt me? Horace paused and then said, I think I was trying to frighten you when I said that. You didn't frighten me. Horace suggested it would be nice if you would forget you ever saw me. Let me go. The voice was suddenly sharp. Why should I? You were going to rob me. If I let you go, you will only rob someone else. Society must be protected from men like you. Horace smiled. I'm not a man who threatens society. I steal only from those who have a lot of money. I steal for a very good reason, and I hate the thought of prison. She laughed and he begged, thinking that he had persuaded her. Persuaded means convinced to do something. Look, I have no right to ask you for anything, but I am desperate. Let me go, and I promise never to do this kind of thing again. I really mean it. When Horace heard the lady saying that she would call the police, then he told her that he would cut the telephone wires first and then probably he'll try to frighten her. Horace also told her that she should forget seeing him and she should let him go. But then the lady did not want that. She did not want to let go of a thief. Then Horace smiled and he replied that he wasn't the one who was threatening the society. He used to steal money only from rich people, and then that he stole only for a good reason. And secondly, he hated to go to prison. When he begged that he should be allowed to go, the woman started to laugh. Horace then promised her that he would never do such a thing again and that he really means and she should let him go. She was silent, watching him closely. Then she said, You are really afraid of going to prison, aren't you? She came over to him, shaking her head. I have always liked the wrong kind of people. She picked up a silver box from the table and took a cigarette from it. Horace, eager to please her and seeing that she might help him, took off his gloves and gave her his cigarette lighter. You'll let me go? He held the lighter towards her. Yes, but only if you'll do something for me. Anything, you say? Before we left for London, I promised my husband to take my jewels to our bank, but I left them here in the safe. I want to wear them to a party tonight, so I came down to get them, but... Horace smiled. You've forgotten the numbers to open the safe, haven't you? Yes, replied the young lady. Just leave it to me and you'll have them within an hour. But I'll have to break your safe. Don't worry about that. My husband won't be here for a month and I'll have the safe mended by that time. Mended means repaired. The young lady was kind, but she was very shrewd, cunning. She took off a cigarette from a silver box, and in order to please her, Horace took out the cigarette lighter and lit her cigarette and asked her to let him go, to free him. She agreed that she would do it only on one condition, if Horace helps her. She told Horace that before they left for London, she had promised her husband to take her jewels to the bank, but she left them in the safe. And today she wanted to wear those jewels for a party. When she came down to get them, she had forgotten the number of the safe, the secret code of that safe. And so she wanted Horace to open that safe so that she could get her jewels. And she told him that it wouldn't be a problem because within a month before her husband returns, she will get that safe repaired. And within an hour, Horace had opened the safe, given her the jewels, and gone happily away. For 2 days, he kept his promise to the kind young lady. On the morning of the third day, however, he thought of the books he wanted, and he knew he would have to look for another safe. But he never got the chance to begin his plan. By noon, a policeman had arrested him for the jewel robbery at Shotover Grange. Horace was an expert in breaking the safe, so he opened it immediately and gave that lady her jewels, after which he went away happily. For the next 2 days, he kept his promise, but on the third day, when he was reminded of the books that he wanted to buy, he was tempted of a robbery again in some other house. But on the third day, a policeman came to arrest him. He was arrested on the grounds of the jewel robbery at Shotover Grange, something which Horace did not understand. He felt that the young lady had filed a complaint against him, and that is how the policeman had come to arrest him. His fingerprints, for he had opened the safe without gloves, were all over the room, and no one believed him when he said that the wife of the owner of the house had asked him to open the safe for her. The wife herself, a grey haired, sharp tongued woman of 60, said that the story was nonsense. Horace is now the assistant librarian in the prison. He often thinks of the charming, clever young lady who was in the same profession as he was and who tricked him. He gets very angry when anyone talks about honor among thieves. So, what led to Horace's arrest? His fingerprints. If you remember in the story, he had taken off his gloves to take out the cigarette lighter, and without wearing the gloves, he had opened the safe. So, his fingerprints were all over the place. When Horace told that the owner's wife herself had told him to open the safe for her, no one believed it. The real wife of the owner was a grey haired, sharp tongued woman of 60. She was an old woman, and she said that this whole story was a lie. So, what had happened? There was some other young lady who had come there as a thief and wanted to rob that house. But when she saw Horace there, she made a plan and she disguised herself as the owner of that house and presented herself with the problem. When Horace helped the lady's aim was achieved. She ran away with the jewels. On the other hand, Horace was arrested for that robbery. And now Horace was an assistant librarian in the prison. And very often he thinks about that clever young lady, that charming, pretty lady who was also in the same profession as he was. That is, the lady was also the thief as the Horace was, and it pains him how she had tricked him. He gets very angry when anyone says that there should be honor among thieves, that there should be respect among thieves. But in reality, what happened with him in life was against this saying that there should be honor among thieves. That is, one thief should not go and rob at the same place where there is another thief present. That's the story. Trust is the most important quality. However, a thief is a thief and has no hesitation. The lady in red, who was a thief herself, broke the rule that there should be honor among thieves. She cheated Horace Danby by breaking his trust, though they both were in the same profession. She got him arrested once her aim was achieved. Therefore, the title, A Question of Trust, seems to be very apt for the story, because at the end of the story we come to know that the lady who claimed herself to be the owner of the house broke Horace Danby's trust. Ends do not justify means. This is a very old saying. For own benefit, nobody should harm others. Agreed that there is a lot of competition in today's world, but that doesn't mean that to achieve our success we put someone else at stake or harm them. So the moral of the story is that achieve your goal only by hard work and not at the expense of someone else life. That's all in this session. I'm now going to flash the summary and question answers in front of you. Have a look at them. And I'll see you again in my next video with a new topic. Till then, take good care of yourself. God bless you all. Keep smiling. And thank you very much.